بسم الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. My dear brothers and sisters, I welcome you back to our Hajj presentation. And today is the day of the 29th of Shawwal, 1444 years after the Hijrah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, which coincides with May 19, 2023. I believe for my couple of classes or lessons before, I was mentioning the wrong month, Shaban, but actually this is a Shawwal, as everybody knows, inshallah. So I apologize for the mistake. Today we are going to talk about the rest of the Tawaf al-Qudum, sorry, the Umrah of the Hajj Tamattu, because we are studying Hajj Tamattu, because as we mentioned, this is the Hajj that we are supposed to do in normal circumstances. So we just finished talking about the Tawaf, and we also spoke about the bid'ah of the Tawaf, and today inshallah we are going to move towards the Sa'i and the completion of the Umrah. After Tawaf, we mentioned that we go to the station of Ibrahim and we recite the part of the ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 125, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take the Maqam Ibrahim as a station of prayer. This is what the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to do in the Quran, and he practically showed it how to do this. So we do not take the Maqam Ibrahim as a station of prayer all the time. We do it how the Prophet taught us to do it, which is after we make the tawaf around the Kaaba, we go towards the Maqam Ibrahim if possible, and we recite this ayah as the Prophet recited. And then we keep the Maqam Ibrahim between us and the Kaaba and we pray 2 rakat. If we cannot do that because of the crowding, you don't force yourself to do this, you pray it anywhere in the Haram. And in this 2 rakat, in the first rakat you recite Surah Al-Kafirun, and the second rakat you recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, and this is mentioned in the hadith of Jabir in Sahih Muslim. Then we go and drink a lot of Zamzam water. Fill yourself with Zamzam water, this is the sunnah, and take some water and put it on your head. Men and women both. Then we go back to the black stone corner, and if we can touch or kiss, if we cannot, we wave it with our hand or something that we have in our hand. We make the ishara or sign towards it, and we say only with the right hand, not with both the hands, and we say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, or just Allahu Akbar. This is something that many people, they do not do it nowadays, so this is important. Of course, these are not obligation, but the more we do these things, practicing the sunnah, the more our Hajj will be close to the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ. Now we are ready to go to the Mas'a, or the area of the Sa'i, and you will see signs that will take you towards the Mas'a, and we will start with Mount Safa. There is big signs over there everywhere. So you will say towards the Mas'a, this is this way Safa, this way is Marwa. Safa starts here. Most importantly, that we should make sure that we are on Safa. Because a lot of people, they go to the foot of the Safa. Okay, like the same way when we do the Tawaf, we make sure we are facing the black stone as much as possible, and we come and finish with the black stone. That is the condition of the Tawaf. Similarly here, the condition of the Sa'i, or running between the Safa and Marwa, that we must make sure we are on Safa, and when we go to Marwa, that we are on Marwa. That is the most important thing. So as you can see, the Hujjaj over there, they are there. As you know, these are several levels. The bottommost level is the most crowded. You should try to avoid the crowding because it is very difficult. You will not be able to focus things. You will be rushed. So it is better to do in the upper floors, which is much more, less crowded. And it is much more relaxed for us to do the Sa'i in the upper floors. What the Prophet said before he started his Sa'i, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. he went to the foot of the Safa and he recited the verse number 158 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah فمن حج البيت أو يعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. The translation. But before that, when he would recite, he would say, Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi. Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi. The translation of the verse, indeed, the Safa and Marwa are the signs of Allah. So it is not a sin on him who performs Hajj and Umrah of the house to perform the tawaf, and yattawafa bihima. Remember, we said that this Sa'i is also known as the tawaf, because you are actually circling between the Safa and Marwa. That you perform the tawaf between them, and whoever does good voluntary, then verily Allah is Shakir al-Alim, the recognizer and the knower of everything. Now this tatawwa, meaning the extra, not just talking about the Sa'i, it's talking about the Hajj and Umrah. So if somebody does his obligatory Hajj and he follows up with a voluntary Hajj, this is what it's talking about. So we will understand that Safa and Marwa, the tawaf between Safa and Marwa, there is no voluntary tawaf between Safa and Marwa. Okay, the only tawaf that is allowed is during your Umrah and during your Hajj. During your Umrah and during your Hajj. There is no voluntary tawaf. So what we mean by that is when we go to the Haram Sharif and we are done with our Umrah, let's say, or with our Hajj, can we do voluntary tawaf around the Kaaba? Yes, of course. But is there voluntary Sa'i between Safa and Marwa? No. So do not misunderstand this, as some people, they misunderstand this verse and they go and do voluntary Sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And this is a bid'ah. This is not from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is what you say in the beginning of the Sa'i, at the foot of Safa. Now, this verse and Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi, which means we begin with what Allah has begun with. Meaning, Allah starts the verse by saying, Inna Safa wal Marwat. So we start with Safa. We do not start with Marwa. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi. We start with what Allah started. And this is, of course, taught to the Prophet ﷺ from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This recitation of the verse and to say Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi, of course, this is in the beginning of the Sa'i. You don't repeat it anywhere else. The Sa'i. So we go to the foot of the mountain of Safa and recite the ayah, and we say Nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi, and this is only recited before the starting of the Sa'i, and it should not be repeated each time on Safa and Marwa. Very important. Then we go on top of the Safa, and we mentioned that you make sure that you are on Safa and face the Qibla, and you will see the direction of the Qibla from Mount Safa. It's very, the direction is there, and repeat the legislated dua. What is the legislated dua? Say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, yuhyi wa yumit, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdah, la sharika lah, anjaza wa'dah, wa nasara abdah, wa hazamal ahzaba wahdah. Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. There is none truly worthy of worship except Allah alone, without a partner. To him belongs the sovereignty and all praise. He alone gives life and causes death. Yuhyi wa yumit, and he is powerful over everything. There is no one truly worthy of worship except Allah alone, without a partner. He has fulfilled his promise and has helped his servant, and he alone has defeated the confederates. This is talking about the battle of the Ahzab. This is the dua the Prophet ﷺ used to say on Mount Safa. And that's what we mean by the legislated dua, meaning it is a legislation from Allah. Then you raise your hand. After you say the legislated dua, you raise your hand and you make a long dua, as the Prophet did. And these are the positions you should not try to rush. Unique positions. Either you will have it in Umrah and Hajj, and standing on the Safa and Marwa. Other than that, there is no unique time to do this. Raise your hand and you face the Qibla and make a long dua. What is this dua? A personal dua, whatever you want to. And I usually try to make a big list so that I will not forget these duas. make sure do I make dua for these things. People sometimes request to make dua to remember. I used to make a list, inshallah, and that helps, if that helps. Then after we are done with your personal dua, you put your hands down and you recite again the legislative dua. What is that? We just mentioned. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la lahul mulku wa lahul hamd. That dua until وَهَزَمَ الْأَحْزَابَ وَحْدَهُ. And then you again raise your hand and make your personal dua, a long dua, as much long as you can make it, inshallah, possible. And then after you do that personal dua, again you put your hands down and you say this legislated dua again. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la lahul mulku wa lahul hamd, yuhyi wa yumit, until the end. وَهَزَمَ الْأَحْزَابَ وَحْدَهُ. Can you say it while you read from it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, inshallah. No problem. Okay. Then, done. Your part of the Safa is done. So what will happen? Legislated dua. Then you raise your hand. Long personal dua. Put your hands down. Legislated dua. Then you again raise your hand. Long dua. Then you put your hands down. Legislated dua. So you sandwich your personal dua between the 3 sets of legislated dua, if that makes sense, inshallah. Then you come down and proceed towards Marwa. You walk, and then between the Safa and the Marwa, and this is close to the Safa, you will see the green light. What is that green light zone? In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a valley and there was water, and that is the place where our mother Hajar, the mother of Ismail, Hajar, she ran, and the Prophet ﷺ here jogged. Running here meaning jogging. And this is where the men and women both can jog, inshallah, if possible. If not possible, you walk. So you start from the green zone, and when the green light stops, you stop running, and then you walk towards Marwa. What are we supposed to say during the Sa'i of the Safa and Marwa? Same thing as you did in the Tawaf around the house. Recitation of the Quran, istighfar, your personal dua in whatever language, inshallah ta'ala, recitation of the Quran. You can mix, match, whatever is comfortable for you. Lots of dua that you can do between the Safa and the Marwa. Once you reach Marwa, you stand on Marwa. Make sure you are on Marwa, not at the foot of the Marwa. You're on Marwa, and you face the Qibla, and you repeat what you did in Safa. What did you do? Legislated dua, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumiitu, until وَهَزَمَ الْأَحْزَابَ وَحْدَهُ. Then you put your hands down, raise your hand, make your long personal dua, put your hands down, make again legislated dua, then again put your hands up, make a long personal dua, then you put your hands down and you make the legislated dua. Exactly copy and paste what you did in Safa. Now we are done with Marwa. Now from Safa to Marwa is one round. And now you go towards Safa. Right? So you go walking, and once you're close to Safa, you will see the green zone. You start running. When the green zone stops, you start walking, and you do the same thing, recitation of the Quran, istighfar, other things. And now you go all the way to Safa. Make sure you're standing on Safa. You face the Qibla. You do the same thing that you did on Safa. Now this is the second. Now you come back third to Marwa, then you go to fourth, and then you come back fifth, then you go and sixth to Safa, and then the last round would be seventh, and you finish with Marwa. Every single time you will do what you did on Safa in the beginning. Legislated dua, personal dua, legislated dua, personal dua, legislated dua. Very simple. But once you finish with the Marwa, you do not say anything. You do not face the Qibla, you do not make dua. Why? Because that's what the Prophet did. After this, you're almost at the end of the Umrah, but you're still not out of the Ihram. How do you exit the Ihram? We exit the Ihram by shaving or trimming our hair for the men. As for the women, of course, they cannot shave. They will trim at the end of their hair. Kind of the ulama, they say there's nothing in the Sunnah how much they should take. Maybe this recommended a finger joint like this. It could be less than that. It could be more than that. Whatever they feel comfortable, at the end they grab and they cut. This is what the women should do. Of course, they cannot do it in front of everybody because they're going to be in hijab. So can they go to their hotel room and do it? Yes, of course. They go to the hotel room, and there is no rush. You don't have to do it at the foot of the Marwa. Okay. So at the men, they can go and to the the barber shop, which is usually if you exit the haram, you see the clock tower. On the left hand side, you have the Safa tower. Underneath there is a tunnel. You go there, and there's a lot of barbers. And by the way, if you're going over there, the people will call you, please come haircut and all these things. So you just follow them. Standard price, you just get shaved. Since you will also shave on the day of Hajj, it's maybe better that you trim. However, if you do shave here at the time of the Umrah, as you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah have mercy upon those who shave. So the Sahaba said, what about those who shorten? So the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah have mercy upon the one who shaves. And he did it 3 times until at the end said, may Allah have mercy upon the one who shortens too. Okay, so shaving is the best. But if you shave now, would your hair grow during the Hajj time? Yes. It usually takes 2-3 days to grow hair, not more than that. So you can do double shave. I myself did that during my Hajj, not a problem. But if somebody said, I want to trim now and shave at the Hajj time, that's wonderful. I highly recommend that you shave. A very important note over here that if you have to use wheelchair for any of your family members, make sure that you push the wheelchair, because those people who are doing the wheelchairs, they do it so fast. They rush, first of all, and they make the Hujjaj just briefly stop at the Marwa and the Safa, and they drill them to raise their hand towards the Kaaba. Is this Sunnah? Not Sunnah. Raise their hand like this, both hand or one hand, and then they kiss. All of this is bid'ah. We're supposed to not wave towards the Kaaba. We are supposed to do the legislated, personal, legislated, personal, legislated. For the personal time, we'll raise our hand to make the dua. That's what we are supposed to do. But these people, since they're trying to make money and they want to do it, they don't want to get stuck with you. So all what they do is they go rush, and then barely they stop at the Safa, and then they rush and take the Hajjaj back. So when I did it with my mother, I made sure that I told them I'm going to pay you more, but I will push it. And I pushed it, and we made sure that we made our tawaf in a very calm time, and we took our time. Another pointer over here is that if you're going with a group, they will also rush you. So try to do it on your own, because it's very simple. And that's why Hajj, if you know the rules, you're not going to be dependent on these groups. Because one day it's a big group, they're going to rush you. Let's go, let's go. Everybody is there. They cannot wait for you. So you will be always rushed. So these are pointers, inshallah. If it's possible, you do it on your own. If it's not possible, then la yukallifullahu nafsan illa usaha. Allah doesn't burden with us things that we cannot hold or carry. The legislated dua, we already went through that, inshallah, and the meaning. And it's good to have a handout with all these du'as, and you can read it, inshallah ta'ala, if you cannot memorize the whole dua before you go to Hajj, no problem. If you miss this dua, is it a problem? No problem. No problem about it. These are not obligatory things of the Sa'ee. The picture here, as you can see, you start from the Safa, and in the middle part where is basically those people, they will use the wheelchair. But if you use the wheelchair, you should not use the middle part. You should go the normal place. Okay, this way you will not rush with the other wheelchairs. You do it on your own. And as I said, that if you go in the upper levels, it's much calmer, and there'll be more space for you to push the wheelchair if you need to use the wheelchair for your family members. You start with the Safa, you face the Qibla, and you make long dua, and you go. That is one. And then you make the second, then you make the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then seventh. You stop with Marwa, as we mentioned. And the green zone, as you can see, it is close towards the Safa, far away from the Marwa. It takes a lot of time. Usually for us, I believe it took about 2.5 to 3 hours. But it's worth it. You don't want to rush. You want to take your time and do the Hajj and the Umrah the best possible way. This is the picture of the green zone. As you can see, it's very clearly lighted, so you will not miss it, inshallah. But if you did miss it, or you are walking and then you realize, oh, I'm in the green zone, what should I do? Just run if you can. Okay, but don't go back and don't do these things, because it is not needed. There are more signs. You say Safa and Marwa, you have all of these signs. Marwa is here, Safa is here. So make sure you follow the signs and you go to the Safa and go to the Marwa. Flexibility during the Sa'i. So now after cutting the hair or the trimming of the hair, you have exited the Umrah. You are exited the Ihram, you're done with the Umrah. What I mean by Umrah, you're done with the Umrah and you exit the Ihram and everything becomes permissible for the Hujjaj or the Haji, covering the head for men, covering the ankle, using perfume, cutting nail, hair, you see, having relationship with the spouse, marrying, conducting marriage, proposal, everything, hunting, everything becomes, I'm sorry, hunting, there's a problem here because you're still in the haram, and we're going to cover that later on. Everything that was prohibited for a muhrim becomes permissible for him completely until the Yawm Tarwiyah, the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, when the Hajj starts. And we're going to go there very soon. Flexibility during Sa'i. Continuity is not a condition of the Sa'i. So the Hajji can pause, take breaks in between any rounds of the Sa'i. This break can be long or short. The 7 rounds can be divided into multiple breaks as needed and easier for the Hajji. For example, a person can be tired or feel sick, or he has to make wudu, he has to pray the namaz, obligatory namaz, and all these things for which he can multiple times break his 7 rounds and continue from where he broke. So let's say you did Safa to Marwa and Marwa to Safa too, then you're tired. I want to go to the hotel and take rest. Okay, go take rest. Then I come back next day. And when do I start? Where do I start? You start from Safa because you did Safa to Marwa and Marwa to Safa 2 rounds. So now you will start with the third round. You start with the third, you don't have to start all the way from the beginning. There is no proof to say that major or minor purification is a must for Sa'i, meaning you can do your Sa'i without wudu. And if somebody is in a situation, you know what, I have to correct something here. 1 second. Okay. So if somebody doesn't have wudu or somebody is in major impurification, he can still do Sa'i or she can still do Sa'i. For women, they cannot, of course, pray and they cannot do tawaf around the Kaaba in the situation of monthly bleeding, the menstrual bleeding, or the postnatal bleeding after the birth when the mother has that. But in the case of Sa'i, she can, because the Prophet ﷺ clearly mentioned, do everything except tawaf of the Kaaba. So the Sa'i can be done in that situation. Major and minor impurification has no holding here. However, I myself feel comfortable to do it in both, of course, to have wudu and, of course, major purification. All rites during the Sa'i are optional, and if missed intentionally or unintentionally, does not annul the Sa'i, not the Tawaf. Okay, not, and he corrected the Sa'i. I kind of copied this from the Sa'i, file, so some of the things remain there. It doesn't annul the Sa'i, but here we say that you missed the Sunnah. You missed a lot of reward. If somebody wants to rush and doesn't want to stand on the Mount Safa facing the Qibla to make the dua that legislated a person all these things, and he says, okay, I stood there, now I'm going to go back. So can do it quickly. Okay, some people might have rushed. Some people are feeling sick. Okay, and he wants to finish it quickly before he gets more sick. Now they have a valid excuse to rush. Can they do this? Yes, they can do this. But make sure you're on Safa, make sure you're on Marwa, insha'Allah ta'ala. And these are important to discuss because sometimes some people might say, oh, I missed this, so my Sa'i is gone, my Hajj is... No, your Hajj is absolutely valid, inshallah ta'ala. But at the same time, don't take it lightly and say, oh, these are sunnah, so if I miss it, not a big deal. We also don't be in that mode when you go there. A Sa'i can be done in shoes. Sa'i can be done riding, meaning you are in the wheelchair. Of course, you cannot ride camel and those things now, but you can do on the wheelchair, no problem. Somebody can carry you. If ihram clothes have impurity, or the clothes with which we are wearing and doing the Sa'ee has impurity, will it affect the validity of the Sa'ee? It will not. It will not. So the note, Sa'ee is Sahih if the person doesn't have wudu. Sa'ee is Sahih if the person is uh, in major impurification. It is still Sahih. No problem, inshallah. I hope this is clear. I wanted to mention this. Now we are out of Ihram, because out of Ihram means until you cut your hair or trim your hair. For the men, we have to trim it equally. Some people, like the women, they take the hair like this and they cut it, a small portion of it. Because some people, they're very touchy about their look, okay, and they don't want to mess up their hairdo. Please don't do this. If you trim your hair, you trim it equally. You cannot take from like the women do at the end and cut it like this. I have seen men doing this. Not from the Sunnah. You should cut equally. It is then you will exit the Ihram. So now, yes, we are out of the Ihram, but we are not out of the Haram. So there are some rules of the Haram I want to remind you. First of all, no fighting, no carrying weapons, no cutting of trees or shrubs, no hunting, and the animals in the Haram cannot be disturbed. You cannot pick up the luqata, the lost items, unless you declare it. Unless you, of course, declare it. These are the rules of the Haram. They apply upon us all the time, whether we are muhrim or whether we are not muhrim. But some of these rules are copied in the Ihram, because in the Ihram, a muhrim, he's not supposed to hunt, right? But a person who is in the Haram are also not supposed to hunt. And also disturb the animals of the games. The rules of the Masjid Al-Haram, is like the rules any other masjid, all the time. So when you enter, you say the dua. Before you sit down, you're supposed to say Tahiyatul Masjid, the 2 rakat. Let's say you went there and you do the tawaf, voluntary tawaf, 7 rounds. Okay, now can you sit? No. Why I'm saying this? Because there's some people who say the tahiyya of Masjid Al-Haram is the tawaf. Is there any hadith like this? Nothing like this. So you did the 7 rounds of tawaf. Can you sit down? No, you shouldn't sit down. You should pray 2 rakat. But however, you know that the Prophet's hadith that every 7 rounds has 2 rakat, the 2 rakat that we are supposed to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim, right? So if somebody prayed that 2 rakat, now suffices his 2 rakat he's supposed to pray before he sits down. So now he can sit down, inshallah. And in Masjid Al-Haram, there is a special rule. The Prophet said, "O Bani Abd Manaf, do not stop anybody to do tawaf and salat at any time in the masjid." So Masjid Al-Haram, there is no prohibited time. You can pray during the sunrise, you can pray during the sunset, you can pray during the zawal. There is no prohibition of prayer at any time in Masjid Al-Haram in Makkah. And this is only specifically for Masjid Al-Haram. And now you understand why it is important that we discussed in the beginning the 3 boundaries. The 3 boundaries. This is only applicable in Masjid Al-Haram when you are in Masjid Al-Haram. If you're outside Masjid Al-Haram, then of course there is the prohibited times that you should not pray. So the prohibited time is while the sun is rising, the sun is setting, and the sun is at the zawal at the top of the head. And also if somebody prayed his Fajr obligatory and Asr obligatory, he shouldn't pray anything else. Those are the kind of the prohibited times, and there are some exceptions. Okay, but in Masjid Al-Haram, no such time. At any time, nobody can prohibit you to pray. I want to pray 2 rakat nafil. The sun is rising, or the sun is setting, or it is in the zawal, or I have prayed my Fajr obligatory or Asr obligatory. Can I pray? Yes, nobody can stop you. And this is only especially for Masjid Al-Haram. In Masjid Al-Haram, when we are praying, should we take sutra? Yes. Some people, they say, when you're in Masjid Al-Haram, there is no sutra. There is nothing like this. You should try to make sutra and keep sutra as much as possible, inshallah ta'ala. And this is going to be enough for today. Alhamdulillah, we have finished the Umrah, and this is our Umrah of Hajj Tamattu. Hajj Tamattu. Inshallah ta'ala, we will continue to be outside the Ihram, and we are going to get ready to start the Hajj very soon. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our Hajj Hajjun Mabrur, and those who have performed obligatory Hajj to give us the ability to do Hajj, voluntary Hajj and voluntary Umrah as much as possible. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.